Today's video is brought to you by my amazing patrons on Patreon. Priority deck requests and extended discussions are just some of the many perks you get for being a patron. Consider supporting the channel today. Welcome back to today's build. Whether you're just looking for upgrades or have no idea how to build this deck, I'll be your guide to this wonderful game we all love. Let's get started. Today's deck will rot your world. Her name is Muldrotha, and this is a Bog Lasagna. Since we need mana to cast Muldrotha, as well as mana to make the fullest use of her ability by casting as many cards as we can from our graveyard, the first thing we have to figure out is mana. When Muldrotha is in play, we're making the most of her ability when our land drops come from our graveyard, which makes the lands in our hand dead cards. But we're not actually profiting if the card advantage she gives us is in the form of dead cards. So some portion of the deck's ramp package needs to be dedicated to playing extra lands from our hand. Since we have to ramp as well as stock our graveyard, and that can take several turns to set up, our early game plays need to be controlling, and preferably be permanents that fill multiple of these roles. Our late game plays, on the other hand, need to be focused on abusing Muldrotha to the greatest degree we can. Lastly, since Muldrotha's utility is in the form of resource management, making her a Type B commander, we can't forget to include a dedicated win condition in our 99. Likely some sort of combo since the resources she gives us are in the form of card advantage. These three cards each represent card advantage, but if you look closer, Secret of the Dead is only online when Muldrotha is, and we have a fully stocked graveyard. Not to mention that we actually have to pay mana for our spells in order to draw any cards with this. Likewise, Muldrifter and Baleful Strix can be recast from our graveyard, but not at a good rate, and only when we're already drowning in card advantage from Muldrotha. We can do a lot better, and we'll start with some more efficient card draw that will work at all stages of the game. Similarly, these mill effects are really inefficient. 5 mana to mill 2 each time we draw is too expensive when we still have to put in the work to draw. And if you end up drawing multiple cards, it will take a long time to resolve. Likewise, World Shaper is a 4 mana mill 3 once a turn, and not on the turn it comes down. There's no immediate impact. Its death trigger is the best part of the card, but without this being a dedicated sacrifice deck, I just can't justify it. We'll swap these out to make room for these 3 cards instead. And lastly, Animate Dead, Sir Conrad, and Shriekmaw are getting cut. Shriekmaw because even when it's reusable, it's too restrictive to be very useful, and Sir Conrad and Animate Dead because they're too split from our focus. While we are milling a lot, we're incentivized to divide our permanent types somewhat evenly, so there's not a high enough density of creatures in the deck to be able to mill ourselves into a big damage turn. And we don't have the structure to mill our opponents very easily either. So while it would definitely do damage, I can't justify its inclusion here. Since we're not a dedicated reanimator deck, we're lacking a lot of the juicier targets we might want for this. I think those card slots could be better put to use on these cards instead. So what do our lands look like? Lands are probably the biggest problem any Muldrotha deck needs to solve. We'll be running a few more lands than usual to compensate for the mana demands of our commander and the card advantage she brings. And there are a few tricks that are important to keep track of. First, because we want ways to put more lands into play, Terrain Generator is perfect for us. High Market can help us move creatures between the battlefield and graveyard to be recycled, and Temple of the False God will fit right at home here with our higher mana demands and the land count. Next are the new Capenna fetches. Replaying these from our graveyard each turn means we can pad our life total while ending the deck and stacking our land count. There are a lot of upgrades to be had here on higher budgets, so be sure to check out the honorable mentions at the end of the video. Right now, the Surveil lands from Murders at Karlov Manor are out of budget because they've just been spoiled and the set hasn't come out yet while I'm recording this. But if you can get your hands on those would also be stellar here. So what's our timeline? On turn 1, we can play out some early Rattlesnake interaction to set up for future turns. Next, we'll start ramping, and the Liquid Metal Torque in our ramp package can combine with a lot of our artifact removal to take out any non-land permanent instead. Turn 3, we'll start milling, while advancing our game plan and holding back our opponents. We'll continue on like this for the next few turns, controlling enemy strategies and fueling our own, with a torrent of oppression, ramp, and card advantage that fills our graveyard while we're doing this. Even with our ramp, we'll aim to land Muldrotha around turn 6 or so that we can take advantage of our graveyard on the same turn. Next, we'll grab any remaining pieces of our combo with these graveyard tutors, building up to an infinite mill combo with Altar of Dementia, Kaya's Ghost Form, and Lotus Petal. Enchant Muldrotha with the Ghost Form and sacrifice her to the altar. When she returns to the battlefield, the game sees her as a new permanent and loses track of what card types we've cast from our graveyard this turn, allowing us to recur Lotus Petal and Kaya's Ghost Form, and repeating this process as many times as we want to in order to mill out our opponents. This deck is a classic example of using your graveyard as a second hand. Between those cards and all the lands we stack up, Muldrotha is a tide of resources that keeps the board controlled until we're ready to win, and the range of strategies it can handle is enough to earn her a place in the top commanders of all time. A very special thanks to all my amazing patrons. When I started this channel, I wanted to talk about deck building decisions with my videos, but in practice what ends up happening is that I talk for 30 minutes about all the nuance of a deck, which is longer than I'm comfortable with posting to YouTube. Here, patrons can request priority deck techs, access extended discussions on their favorite decks, in-depth guides on complex game actions, and more. So if you enjoyed this content, consider becoming a patron today. One of the things my patrons have made possible is a special series of deck techs that I'm really excited to show off to you guys. When I finally get them all uploaded, I'll be giving away a special collection of altars and tokens that I've made, corresponding to each deck on the channel. For example, for the Merkle Lord of Bones deck, the prize is a set of double-faced altars of the most prominent cards in the deck, whose backsides are set in the constellation frame with updated text to show that they're acting as enchantments now. For every 1,000 views on each video, I'll increase the prize pool for that deck. All you have to do to be eligible to win is be subscribed to the channel. Consider supporting the channel today. If you like this video, here are some of the decks I'm working on next, so if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any, and check out the playlist in the top left for more. Thanks for watching!